Okay, let's go ahead and bring this meeting of Fire and Emergency Management Committee to order. Today's December 10th, Tuesday, December 10th. It's at 1:30. Roll call, please.
Addison.
Here.
Cordonish.
Here.
Thank you.
Here. Great. Chief, can we do the station expansion update, or should we go to?
We can kind of go a little bit into it, but if you want to skip this and
Yeah.
just go to item 2 for right now.
Okay.
And then we'll come back when the architect comes online, and that'll kind of cover everything and we'll
Okay.
have to backtrack.
Okay, all right. So let's go to item 2, which is the equipment PPE update.
Okay, so good afternoon, by the way, and whoops. The equipment and PPE update, couple of items on this. We have put in the past 4 years for 16 new Scott SCB, or I'm sorry, 16 new MSA SCBAs. We currently have Scotts, and they have now reached 15 years old, which is kind of the deadline for SCBAs through NFPA. With that being said, the last 4 years, we haven't received the AFG grant to replace those. I'm gonna put in for it 1 more year. It is not a specific item when you look at the AFG grants that they put a high priority on. But there is a caveat in the NOFO, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which identifies particular PPE, and SCBAs are identified under that PPE as a high priority. I went back and looked at the previous Notice of Funding Opportunities. And that's been in there before, and we haven't gotten the grant. I'm hoping as a result of us being timed out with the NFPA requirement of 15 years, that could give us some additional points with regards to our scoring. We are at a point where we are sending in, I would say, all of our SCBAs annually for issues. So they're failing, coming out of service and being sent in for repairs, and then they come back. And we tend to rotate through almost every single SCBA that we have as a result of them being so old and so outdated. That they go down, they get a replacement part, then they come back in service, and another one goes out of service. So that's kind of what we're dealing with on the SCBA front. Through, I will say, not attrition, but the buildup of several years of getting funding through our VFC grant, we have now gotten to a point where we're pretty good with our structural firefighting turnouts. Everybody's gotten the sets that they need. We are handing down some sets to the reserves. There will be anomalies, and with the sets, 1 set of turnouts, which is pants, jacket, helmet, costing about $4,200 now for 1 set. There will be those occasions where if we have somebody that Logan Knuckles, 6'9" of him, may not have a set that fits him, and we would have to order a set. So we will see occasional instances like that where we'll have that one-off, but all in all, we're pretty good there. The one item that did come up is NFPA has put out a new mandate now, and it's not a guideline. It's adopted by California, that requires annual inspections and cleaning of all of our turnouts by a third party. So now we can't even do it in-house and inspect our stuff in-house anymore and clean it in-house. Once a year, it has to go out to a third-party vendor, has to be inspected and has to be cleaned. And then throughout the rest of the year, we can do our. So that is a new mandate that has kind of hit us this year.
What's the cost of that? That's what I was gonna ask.
Don't have costs on it yet because they're still standing up these.
And of course, the state's gonna pay for it because they're mandating.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right?
You-
Okay. Okay, you don't have a.
don't hold your
cost.
breath.
Yeah.
Rough estimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 a set. So if we have
Plus shipping.
plus shipping, yeah, so if we have 15 sets, you know, we're looking at $2,000 annually to send them out, inspect them. And I think that's just for the inspection. I don't think the actual cleaning is part of that. We are looking with the station expansion at a new extractor, and that will allow us to potentially get validated with our own cleaning, but I still think we're gonna have to look at that third party once a year cleaning. And I think that was only about 35 a set plus shipping.
So it's not necessarily a third party, it just has to be a person that meets the criteria.
Meets the
for training.
criteria, yes.
So I know you guys just had your end of year strategic planning for the county chiefs. Was there any discussion on this as being an objective to have the county chiefs get individuals throughout the county trained to that level to offset what that cost might be, so that you could have somebody, let's say, for example, Templeton had somebody trained, and then you could do the inspections for Tascadero Pass robles to, you know, to offset I mean, that's expensive, 2,000
Oh,
a
absolutely,
year, or $150 a set. That's really expensive.
yeah. So.
Or for no repairs, no washing, it's
Right.
just, you know,
No,
all they're
just
doing
an
is,
inspection.
which we've been doing forever, and it's been driven by the manufacturers to get this.
Right.
So has there been any discussion at the county
No.
chief's level?
No, well, yes, there's been discussion. There's been no determination as to, do we want to collectively come together and do something? That has been proposed. So this year, when this comes into play, then yeah, we're probably gonna have to look at something. So you'll probably be part of that conversation. And it's gonna have to be something where, you know, like a Tom Birkenfield with SCBA's or a Doug Harris, you know,
Yeah.
collectively can come in, get trained to do repairs or small repairs, fit testing. I mean, that's another one of those things that we saw over the years that just kind of morphed its way in. Each individual department seems to have their own people. However, we still wind up doing San Miguel and Santa Margarita here, Brandon. And we don't
For fit-
charge
for
for
fit
fit testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't charge them for it, but so yeah, that is a conversation we'll have to have.
I got another comment too on the SCBA's.
Yeah.
Hey, so, I've got a good friend, Gene Fong, he's a battalion chief for Ventura County. He sat on the AFG committees. He's been on both sides for many, many years. And so in my former, experience, we would send our grant applications to him. And then I'd buy him lunch or whatever, have him go through, and, our success improved dramatically because he could key in. He could look at it and go, oh, this is an automatic fail because you didn't include this, or you did that, or
I'd
whatever.
love to.
Sorry I didn't share that with you before that. He's still working. I have no problem. I can connect you with him. He's a perfect guy. And you could email it down, and he number one thing he'll tell you is they always look at what the priority is, because a percentage of that. So there's a percentage of funds they're gonna spend, and they determine what their priorities are each year. And that's what their biggest priority or percentage of money goes towards those priorities. But on the lesser ones, you have to make a more compelling argument. And I'll hook you up with him. I think that might be helpful to have him at least tell you, yeah, I believe if you do this and that, this will be, or he'll share other ones with you that he has. That he'll go, hey, this one was successful, and you can look through it and you can see why it was more successful.
Yeah, and I've done that with Dave Matthew, but Dave's kind of been out of
He's been out of it for too long.
for too
Yeah.
long, and so that would be fantastic to get
Okay.
something like that.
I'll email him and you and send that to you.
Said if,
That's okay.
what was his name, Keith?
His name is Gene Fong. He's
Gene Fong.
like Battalion 42. He's in Ventura County.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on, PPE and or SCBA's on that section?
With the SCBA's, I mean, is this something that we should consider putting in on our budget just in case, or you think we should continue to, you know, figure out the grant situation, and then if, when it gets more urgent, then we
Well, we're
consider-
talking about Jeff, I just sent it to you. What was it, $228,000?
Yeah,
$228,000 hit.
yes,
So I'd like to try one more year.
okay,
You know, I mean, if the repetitiveness of the fail rate continues, then yeah, we may have to look at something.
okay. So I just didn't know if we
Well, we're
wanna
gonna-
start
we're-
budgeting like maybe
we're gonna
40,
get-
50 and-
We're gonna get to a point where we have to make a hard decision.
yes,
We have funding for 4 of these units through the federal grant, and so we
For the engine.
intentionally, for the engine. We
Oh, I
intentionally
see.
aren't buying those items to stock on the engine, because it won't be here for maybe 2 more years.
yes,
So, but when it comes time, when the clock is running, we need to order those, that's when these things need to be all compatible with one another, we can't have a mismatch
yeah,
equipment, right?
Okay.
So that'll be the
And
time.
I would think we should put it in the budget, we don't
Well,
use
you're-
it, fine, but.
You're still 2 years away probably from that date.
Well, so
so you're suggesting
ordering-
not to worry about it till we get the
Well,
truck?
I'm saying that will be the end of that will be the cutoff.
Okay,
So you'd have one more year then before we have, okay.
okay,
Unless the engine delivery date gets pushed forward.
okay, and then do we need all 15 of them,
So,
right away, can we?
right now, what I'm putting in the grant, or what I've been putting in the grant, is 16. That kind of takes all the seat placements for all the different equipment and, my rig, the 2 in the utility and, yeah. Oh, and a couple of spares. And so essentially, by taking 4 out for that engine, I'm gonna back it down to 12, and I don't know if that gives us any better chance, cause it lowers it. But, there wouldn't be any problem with, if we got 12 in this grant and paid for it next year, to then come back a year later and order 4 more, cause the design's not gonna change that much to order 4 more on the money that comes out of the engine grant.
Okay, alright,
Does that make sense?
alright. Okay,
Well, and we could actually order those now, because, I mean, that's not the timing, ordering it early is not a problem. We just,
wanna wait,
there was no point in getting all that equipment that's gonna go on the engine when the engine's not here.
okay,
Yeah. No, the main concern is what we're dealing with right now is the failure rate
Yeah.
on the current SCBA's. And honestly, we don't want one of those to fail with one of our guys inside of an actual live fire. So,
and then would the money come from operational, or can we have it come through?
the asset replacement.
Yeah, we could look and see if I think it would probably qualify for asset replacement if they're more than $5,000 a piece.
Asset
But there's a-
replacement, how about from like impact fees, say, because of?
These are not
Not new.
But I know, but
The
then,
engine itself is new, and that is coming out, the 4 that are assigned to the engine, the matching funds for that would be coming out of the
oh, I
out of the
see,
impact fees, but the other dozen are basically replacing what we have now.
okay, alright,
They're not growth related, we would not be keeping what we have.
alright, so that's why it's
The
important,
The existing SCBA's would be going away.
Oh, correct, yeah.
so that's why it's important for us to make sure we continue to fund our asset replacement account, because all this stuff is coming up, so we have to stay aggressive on that, so, okay.
I don't recall. NFPA is a recommendation on this, but I thought OSHA,
It was OSHA and a local state adoption through Cal OSHA is what is regulating this now.
at 15 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the NFPA, the SCBA.
Yeah, I'm talking about the SCBA.
Yeah, that's the 15-year recommendation.
It's still a recommendation.
It's a
Okay,
recommendation,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
but it's,
I mean,
so,
and counties using MSA.
yeah, well, everybody's using MSA except for us. So we're the other aspect with, us having Scots and everybody around us having MSAs is what we call our buddy breathing. Right now, they don't have it, Scott doesn't have an adapter, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. But they don't have an adapter that allows us to two-way breathe or fill somebody else's tank. Or it's the opposite, that they can't fill our tank.
Oh, I thought it's been universal for like 20.
You got the UAC for everything for the universal air, but the buddy breather on our Scott's comparable with an MSA is different.
Yes.
And Scott will,
Okay, so the ability for them to take the umbilical and plug
Yeah.
in, they can't do that,
No.
but they can buddy breathe through
Correct.
through your regulator.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it does limit us with a safety element, if we had a down firefighter. Okay,
Any other questions or comments? Alright.
Oh, we have Rubio.
Rubio is on, okay.
so we can go back to
Item one,
item 1.
okay, station expansion update. Chief?
Good afternoon, Rubio, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, good deal. We just went on to item 2, but we'll back up to item 1 now. And essentially, what we'd like to look at, and I didn't have the ability to really share the plans yet, so I don't know if we can do a screen share or something like that. And if you can bring up some of those plans, we'll do a screen share with you. And kind of go over the floor plan, what we're looking at, and then timelines. If we can just talk about timelines and potential timeline for the RFP, and where we're at with the process.
Sure. How's that? Is that showing up?
There it is. Yep.
So at this point, we have gotten all our first pass through for all the consultants. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural. And so compiled it all together. And basically this is the beginning of being able to submit to building department for first plan check.
So that is,
And
it is ready for first plan check? Submittal?
I mean, there's a couple of coordination issues, but I don't think there's anything really stopping us from getting a package together and submitting here within the next week or so.
Okay.
So again, I'm not sure how much detail to go into, but just real briefly, you know, just a title sheet. The existing site plan to kind of show some of the demolition work that will need to take place on the site. This black box representing some of the concrete that's going to be removed to adjust grades as well as prepare the pad for the expansion component. Architectural site plan just showing all the features coming together on one site, new electrical service, hose drying tower where the expansion sits, HVAC and so forth. Conceptual grading plan, again, just to kind of adjust some of those grades that are out there that would impact the expansion component and how we are going to divert water around that. Floor plans.
Rubio, are you able to, like, when you're reviewing these plans, zoom in on your screen just a little bit so I can see some more detail, at least of the left side of the screen?
Yeah, you want me to go back at all?
Oh, no, just found here where you're, it's fine.
7195.
Something like that, is that okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So demolition plans, so existing floor plans, and then kind of showing the items that are going to be removed and renovated, you know, a good portion, well, not a good portion, but some items in the existing front office admin space, a little bit in the apparatus bay, removing the door, power washing the floors and so forth. Second floor, basically removing everything except for the existing restroom that's up there, making some new holes in the wall for window placement for the new dorms that will be coming through. And then this is what the revised second floor will look like. So you'll have a slide pull here, 3 dorms, a new restroom, and we're going to be reconfiguring the stairs just to get them a little bit more code compliant and a little bit safer for travel.
Hey, Rubio on the stairs, and I know we talked about it before, but remind me, is that because of the rise and run issue on them?
Yeah, you know, I meant to measure them last time I was out there, but they definitely seem out of whack. That they're not safe, basically. So I felt, you know, particularly now with the new dorms, that we replace this just to make it, again, more code compliant, safer travel, and make sure we got the handrails in there, which the handrails were not compliant, that were currently installed there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they
Okay.
did seem a little steep, when I was out there.
Okay.
And then the revised architectural floor plan, again, showing the expansion component, which involves storage, workout rooms, kitchen, dining, day room area here, turnout storage, a clean room here, workshop area, and a hall connecting the expansion and connecting the renovated fire station component side to the apparatus bay and the new expansion component.
And just for the committee's information, the turnout storage room, that is
Mhm.
also considered what we call a kind of a clean room. The clean room will be next to it, but it's a kind of a decontamination reduction area. When they come out of the apparatus bay, they will go in there, decontaminate, take their SCBA or take their PPE off, clean anything that needs to be cleaned. That way we're not bringing the carcinogenics into the now living space. And that's that new cancer prevention component that we learned about at the Fire Station Design Conference back in Phoenix.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Even though this is kind of like a little bit transitional space, I mean, we do have this hallway here that acts as quote unquote the true transitional space, but again, additional layer of buffer protection for all those items you mentioned, Chief.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
they,
is HVAC then separate in that, that turnout storage and clean room from the rest of the new living space? So it's a
That's separate?
separate HVAC? I mean, it's,
HVAC.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything over here will be powered kind of as its own separate entity. And then we've looked at your existing system and tried to make sure that we are addressing any issues that we've been having in the past with kind of cross-pollination of thermostats and air supply to really make the station function as its own little component and not sharing of anything with the CSD. And you'll see that on the mechanical plans a little bit when we get that.
Yeah, I guess I'm more curious about if the idea is to separate the turnouts and whatnot from the new living space, but if we're just gonna circulate the air between the two, is that effective? Is there, or it's on its own HVAC system? Or
Oh.
does air circulate between the clean room?
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. I apologize. I think I misunderstood your question or your statement there. Yeah. So, you know, these are all either provided with their own unit or, you know, using negative pressure, you know, to make sure that things are pressurized correctly, that we're not blowing air back into the hall, back into living spaces. It's being pushed out of those spaces. But most of the air that you'll see in here, things like exhaust fans, we're exhausting, you know, almost 100%. We're not recirculating any air. For businesses, you know, you don't recirculate air, you exhaust it and bring new air in and condition that for the spaces. So there's never a case where we're going to take air from here, recycle it, and put it back into the day room. If there's an exhaust, it gets exhausted out to the outside. And then reflected ceiling plan. So this is the second floor reflected ceiling plan. So this just basically shows what's on the ceiling, coordinating of lights and HVAC units and finishes and so forth. We'll earmark heights of what those ceilings are. The existing dorm room, we're going to keep all at the exact same height that they are currently. And then we also look at bringing in what called enlarged plans, particularly for restrooms and kitchens where we have a lot of equipment, a lot of items in there that are a little bit too difficult to properly explain at an 1/8 inch scale. So we'll blow them up at a 1/4 inch scale to make sure that we can kind of denote all the items that are going to be going in there. So this is the new restroom on the first floor. This is the new restroom at the second floor with the shower. And then, like I said, this is the kitchen at the first floor to be able to, again, just note it up a little bit more properly and have it be more clear to be read. Oops. And then the first floor reflected ceiling plan. So the apparatus bay, we've come in and we're dropping in a 2x4 ceiling grid, dropping in new lights, the vehicle exhaust system, the Plimavent, how that's installed, and then the expansion component where you see these kind of stippled pattern gypsum board and kind of the checkered pattern T-bar ceiling with lay-in tiles. And then everything back here basically remains the same gypsum board, patch and repair, paint, due to any construction activities that are going on. And then here we'll just drop a little soffit over the kitchen island and dining room table, put some accent lighting, can lighting, again, just to kind of make it a little bit more special, a little bit more homey for day-to-day operations. Detailing, how it all goes together, making sure that the T-bar is installed code compliant wise. Roof plan. Again, this is one of those items. We just received the mechanical plans. I've done a little bit of coordination between me and him as far as showing existing HVAC units and any new units that we're going to be placing on the roof. But then in general, this is the new expansion, new flat roof, dual ply system, built-up roofing system over that, and kind of showing where we're going to have some drains, to how the water is going to drain out with crickets diverting water to that to those areas. And again, more details. Building sections, again, not only showing how the volumes look within the expansion, but also how they will interact with the existing structure, particularly over here with the apparatus bay. We'll be having a 2.5 inch expansion joint between the two buildings, so they will not touch. They'll be separated by 2.5 inches. And so we'll have to detail out how that, the covers that go along with that. But this wall here is offset 2.5 inches from the wall of the existing apparatus bay. So this gives us opportunity to show, again, roof heights, how it goes together, full height walls, T-bar where we're dropping them in, windows and doors, what the foundation and structural systems look like, and oops. Just getting a sense for how everything goes together in that space. Exterior elevations, basically primarily to show how the new elevations come in and how they interact with the existing finishes that are out there. So this is kind of the north side of the building. This is the apparatus bay, and actually there's a door that goes right here that leads out. This is the east side. So this is the kitchen, dining, day room area. So you got some doors that lead out into the patio and the back area. The workout room here, double doors to get out. This is the dorm and existing offices that will be doing some additional nailing and replacing of finishes out there. And this is from the west, the entry door into the kitchen area. And this, we haven't spoken about it yet. Chief, I had a couple ideas, a couple of questions about some new signage at the front elevation, but that's for another time. And more exciting stuff, schedules. All the rooms will label and list and basically give a finish for floors, the base, any wainscoting, what the wall finishes are, what the ceiling finishes are. So each room will be listed here, and then we'll describe what is those finishes are going to be in those rooms. Window schedule. Oops. Window schedule, just an opportunity to show each window, how they operate, what are the materials that they're made out of, in this case, aluminum, what type of glazing, dual glazing, 1-inch glazing, 2/4 inch window panes, and then detailing about how they get installed and correctly. Door schedule. Each door on the plan that we're going to be touching or removing or replacing, we'll get a number and a descriptor where it's at, the size of the door, different types of doors. What does it look like? Does it have a window? Does it have a grill? Does it undercut? And similar with the windows, what kind of frame they will be in. Primarily, most of the doors will be hollow metal. A couple of doors will be aluminum. And then what type of door will go into those frames, wood doors or hollow metal doors or aluminum doors. Hardware sets, what are the hardware hinges, locks and all that stuff? What does that look like? That's being currently worked on. So that'll be a key in here to the specification to say door number 1 gets a lock and an astragal and a door closer and so forth. And that's how we'll describe all that stuff. And then same with the window schedule, we'll have an opportunity to show details on how those doors are installed and interact with the rest of the facility through the detailing of the heads, jambs, and thresholds. Interior elevations, basically any place where we're going to have a specific finish or cabinetry, we want to show it and denote what it looks like. Again, briefly, this is the kitchen. And so this is an opportunity to kind of show where the equipment goes, where the appliances go, how it interacts with all the other features that are installed there. What do each of these cabinets look like? You know, are they doors? Are they drawers? Are they small doors? And being able to kind of customize that to the living conditions of the fire folks. And similar with restrooms, tiling, where the tiling goes, how high the tiling is, any additional features, you know, countertops, all the bathroom accessories, paper towel dispensers, mirrors, toilet seat covers, grab bars, all that stuff will be able to be shown on here and notated what they are. And then this is getting into now the consultant drawing. So this is the structural package. And I'll go through a little quickly on some of these, but if there's something that's a question, please feel free to stop and ask a question or have me explain something a little bit more in depth or detail. So general notes for them, setting up the expectations of what we expect out of the contractor and level of quality. Foundation plan, basically slab on grades and footings for the expansion.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
On the foundation there, so is that set up for future expansion? So if we want to go do a second story in future,
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And even how we are constructing the building itself will lend itself to having an easier transition to a second story. Usually when we slope the roof, we'll slope all the framing down to drains. Here, we're gonna install it the flat, and then use foam to build up the slope so that when you do the second floor, you just take the foaming off, you've got your substrate, you're ready to go up, that becomes your second floor, and you don't have to worry about how do we fix a tilted roof. So foundation from the framing standpoint, it'll all be set and ready to go.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. Framing, roof framing, again, plywood sheathing, nailing patterns, joists, size of joists and spacing of joists, and of course, all their details that are associated with that. Which, speak of the devil, a lot of detailing on how everything goes together. Oops. Yeah, basically just detail to more in depth explain how everything goes together. Mechanical, again, general notes, setting up conditions for construction and quality for the overall project. Schedules, exhaust fans, HVAC, mixing boxes, all that stuff will be listed on here and key to the floor plan. Again, so if we call out something, they can come back to the schedule, know what the manufacturers, the brand, sizing and so forth to supply. Again, more schedule, detailing, again, special conditions, how to hang them, how to mount them, how they're installed, ductwork, units and so forth. Yeah, a lot more details. How it's wired, this interacts with controls and how everything's going to be controlled. And demo plan, basically looking at your existing system. What are we keeping? What are we getting rid of in preparation for the new work? And then the zoning plan, basically how and where each piece of equipment will be serving the various spaces. So you'll see in here, each one of these dorms has a separate zone. So each one of those dorms will be climate controlled separately in relation to this outside space, which is being served by a different unit and thermally controlled by a different thermostat. So in a nutshell, you can have heating in the hallway and then do cooling in your dorm if you're hot. And so basically that just dovetails into here about how we're controlling all that and what units they go back to that you'll see in a minute.
And Rubio, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is gonna be far more energy efficient than what we're currently doing, correct?
Yes and no. Far more energy efficient in that it's being built to today's code. Not as efficient because you are adding space. So,
Well,
but
space,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is you're not going to reduce your overall building. I mean, yes, it'll be better, but because we're adding space, we are putting more in.
Right, but overall, efficiency wise, the systems are gonna be far more efficient. We're not gonna be
Yes.
cooling huge rooms to try and cool a couple of offices, that type of stuff.
Correct. And so ducting and the equipment layout, again, the units in the ceiling, how they're ducted out, supply, return, exhaust, and so forth, and how that all works in there. Again, if somebody's very interested in knowing more about this, I can talk more about it, but
No, I think the details, just a brief overview is fine.
yeah. And so kind of what you're saying earlier, Chief, we have this one unit in here that was basically serving your room, which, you've got this big, huge room that needs a lot of cooling. You don't need that much cooling. You're getting hot, you're getting cold, you can't control it. That'll all be separated out and you'll have an ability to have a little bit more climate temperate spaces on the fire station side. Again, this is just a blow up. Again, you can see there's a lot of duct work, a lot of equipment. So this is just an opportunity to get it bigger, to make all the notes and everything that we're expecting out of the contractor to be a little bit more clear. And then same thing here. This is just a second high, basically the admin, quote unquote, the admin component of it and how that all works together. And then the second floor, the dorms, again, basically how we're utilizing the existing unit that's up there and then cooling everything, or heating and cooling all the new spaces that we're creating. And then the roof plan, again, what I was mentioning, I just need to coordinate some of these items back to my roof plan to make sure everything's copacetic between all the trades. But existing equipment, new penetrations. We've got some new penetrations for the vehicle exhaust system that we'll have to account for. And any new vent through roofs from the plumbing side. And then same thing with the plumbing, general notes, expectations, schedule for all the equipment that we're proposing to put in there, sinks, prime traps, water closets, sinks, faucets, the whole 9 yards will be contained in here. Detailing. Again, the demolition plan for plumbing. And the revised plumbing plans, which I think they've got some blow-ups. Whoops. Again, kind of the same idea. Oops. Just taking, when we have so much information, blowing it up to be more clear, how we pick up things, floor drains, any specialty drains and so forth, and water supplies and gas supply. And then again, the admin side with the new restroom here that we're creating. And then the second floor plumbing plan, again, for the new restroom that we're installing and how we're picking up the washer and dryer. I think this is the sewer, oops, water and gas. Okay, so where we're bringing water to what equipment, where we're bringing gas to what equipment, and how it's all being served and supplied to the various items that need water and gas. And then same thing here, just a blow up plan of all that, the admin side. And the second floor for the new restroom and hooking up the washer and dryer. Roof plan, where we're venting out all that equipment, any new vents, and stuff that pertains to the expansion. Electrical, again, general notes, general expectations, general quality for the overall project. Oops. Notes, circuits, there'll be some panel boards, distribution panels, how we're feeding the entire site and how that's being broken up into the building overall and how what panels are controlling what within the station. The specific panels themselves, what equipment, what circuit, light fixture schedule, every light, again, kind of the same as the plumbing and mechanical. As a designation, this will tell us what the light fixture is, manufacturer, and set up the quality for those lights. The overall electrical site plan. So this is showing currently, I know that you guys have talked about some, whoops, how this equipment is going to go back here, but we'll have a new generator, a new panel board, and to address the upgrading of the electrical service to the site. Demolition, again, what we're keeping, what we're removing from electrical standpoint. And again, pictures to make it clear what we're talking about, where it's at, how to find it for the contractor. Roof plan, again, got new units upstairs. Want how we supplying power to those units and what type of power. Lighting plan, again, this is where we're kind of getting into specific fixture types, and it goes back to the legend and how they're arranged on the ceiling plan. Same thing, second floor. Oh, this is the power plan, sorry. New plugs, where they go. One, following code. Two, will come back to you, chief, to say, is this enough? Do you want more? Where should we put new plugs, specialty plugs, and so forth? Same thing with first floor expansion and how we're treating the renovation components as well. Communication, phone and data, where we're putting plugs, what type of plugs, and again, do we need more? What type of specialty plugs? And that'll be a discussion for you and I, chief, as well.
Okay.
And then MEP, how we're interacting with the mechanical specifically, supplying power, where are those pieces of equipment, and what type of power. And I think the rest is just some detailing, yep, of all the different components and items that will be related to electrical and energy efficiency standard sheets to show that we're in compliance with current code. Yep.
What is our next step on this review as far as, I mean, are we getting ready to where we can have a meeting with myself, the general manager, our district engineer, and all the staff to kind of okay the plan to be ready to go?
When you say ready to go, you're referring to?
For plan review submittal.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, I think we're at that point that, if you wanted to take another look at it prior to submitting to building, now would be the time. Otherwise, we can certainly do that while it's in plan check. I'm not sure how fast the county works. I assume because they're such a big organization that they may take up to 4 weeks to review first plan check. So, there's always that time lag in there where we have quote unquote free time to coordinate, even on our end, get final comments from you. And then once they come out of building plan check, we have that list. We've got your list. Then we're dumping all that stuff back onto the plans and then resubmitting it with what we hope would be the final submittal and sign off for being permit ready.
Okay, well, maybe you and I can coordinate for sometime next week to look at getting everyone together.
Yeah.
As long as the committee's good with what they see, on the surface level here.
Yeah. And then, of course, just for informational purposes, obviously we're not showing in here is the specification book. So there's a companion specifications book that goes along with this that, again, goes into great detail about the quality of materials and expectations of the contractors and so forth while they're out constructing this. And that'll be worked on and completed during that first plan check review as well. That's an opportunity for us to finish it.
Okay, good deal. Does the committee have any?
Sure. Do you guys?
I have no questions.
Okay, so I know you mentioned, I think with the county is probably gonna take longer than 4 weeks. I think probably 4 months, maybe even another way to work. But I guess, once, we've done the planning, then, so I just wanna figure out in terms of getting an estimate and things like that, is it after we have the approval from the, county, that's when we're gonna go do the RFP for?
That was what we intended, was once we have permits
Okay,
in hand to be able to go out to a RFP at that point and get bids from contractors saying we have a permitted job ready to go.
so were we supposed to, I know you had given us a ballpark estimate, were we supposed to receive get an estimate on this plan based on what we have, get one now a little bit and then
A
get a.
cost estimate?
Yes, what's
Yeah.
because I know there were some additions and things like that.
Yeah, no, essentially what I've done is I gave Rubio a figure that we have to stay under.
Okay,
And so that was kind of
and that was 2.5.
2.5 million, yeah.
So you think we could do this for 2.5 million then? Is this plan, that's like, so 2.5 would cover all this?
And real quick, yeah, we do have the cost estimate that we will be preparing based off of these plans here. And then that'll give us an insight as to where we think we are. But early indicators, we feel pretty good that we're going to be, in that number 2.5 or lower. But certainly if something comes out of that, the estimate that would push us, that would be the opportunity then to make a change if we had to. And right now I don't know what that change would be, but it will give us that opportunity to phase, we talked early on about phasing, do we do the dorms? Do we need to take the dorms out to get the expansion done? Or what might happen? Do we do the front office or something? I don't know what, but yes, there will be a cost estimate that will be completed based off of these plans here. That will give us a clearer picture.
So for example, right now, we have a station alerting system that's in this.
Mhm.
That's about $80,000. I mean, that, if we had to, not that I'd want to, but that's something that could come out and we could
Add it later.
add it later, do something similar to what we have right now, which isn't great, because it doesn't really do the intended job that it's supposed to do. But yeah, that's something we can phase in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so so then I guess if everything hopefully goes smooth, then we could possibly start construction in summertime, you think?
Oh, potentially, yeah.
So it just all depends on the county, okay. And then one thing I just thought about, I know we're doing a lot of work with the roof and everything like that, is it, I guess this is for general manager, is it, like, should we look into getting solar panels for the roof? I mean, at least so it will take care of that area, the fire department.
You mean to offset the,
Yeah. So I know, but I know they changed and.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that we could get a great return, but,
I mean, it'll come out of the impact fees, right? So it's like,
well, there isn't any more available. I think that's really kind of our dilemma right now, right? We had ballpark $3 million.
yes,
Okay, we've spent $1 million of that in August, when we ordered the engine. We have $2 million now.
Mhm.
We're gonna spend another ballpark 300,000 on equipment for the engine. That's gonna come out in about, within 18 months to 2 years-ish, depends on when the engine, I guess, is delivered. So then we'll have, if no additional money comes in or just some interest comes in, roughly $1.75 million available. We really are, we expect $1 million reimbursement when the engine comes back. So there's not a lot of additional funds available. As a matter of fact, to cash flow this, we'll probably have to do some internal financing,
yeah.
because we have about a 2-year delay, or 2.5-year delay from when we wrote the $1 million check to when we get the $1 million back from the federal government.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there isn't, we could do more, but there isn't likely the funds available to do more.
I mean, do you think it's worth just looking at that? Because I know, I obviously it's gonna become a bigger space, so.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, so it's got the electricity.
Yeah, we're
cost.
not, I mean, you could do, we could do something that's designed to meet the daytime demands. There's no benefit or very minimal benefit in that energy metering
Yes,
now.
you probably have to get battery, things like that, so. Which could be good to have as well for emergency situations and things like
Well,
that.
and keep in mind, we're gonna have our generator, which is gonna be an auto switch now,
Yes,
so.
that would be, yeah. So instead of, I don't know how the batteries work, but instead of a generator, we could get battery backup where it could.
Yeah, but the generator's probably, I don't know how long the tank is last, but could be multi-day outage.
Yeah.
You know, you could have
Yeah.
not a few hours.
I think there's standards with regards to essential facilities that says you have to have
I see,
the ability to keep power
or, yeah, okay.
continuous.
Yeah, I just was wondering if it's worth.
And a
looking at.
battery wall and that type of stuff, yeah, I totally agree, that'd be worth looking into. But that's something that could also be added at a later
Later,
date too.
exactly, so like maybe we put the infrastructure in if we need to, but okay, that was just.
I mean,
my
we
thought.
could, yeah, we could, we've got, we could spec out what the, you know, we have a south facing roof and the front of the roof doesn't, I don't know, look again, but it doesn't look like it's being touched much.
Yeah,
Um,
so money,
so it wouldn't, you know, I don't know if it's designed to hold, the existing roof is designed to hold PV panels, but,
oh, I see, hopefully. All right, well, I mean, everything looks good, it's exciting, so hopefully we get,
Yeah.
the county will work with us. It won't be like the park.
yeah, I mean, so there's a couple advantages here. One, there's minimal site work. This
Yeah.
shouldn't require extensive planning review or public works review.
Yeah.
It's a building permit kind of an issue, and those aren't the kinds of issues that have sidetracked us on Everest Park. They've been grading and structural, you know.
And keep in mind, we've already gotten an email back from planning that our site, planning wise, is, what's the word I'm looking for, not eligible, but compliant with this type of building.
All right, well, hopefully it'll go through, awesome. And anything else, okay, great, well, thank you very much, appreciate it for your hard work.
Thank you, Rubio, and
Thank
yeah, I'll be in touch and maybe we can get together next week and kind of put some finishing touches on that with staff.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Bye.
Okay, item 3, update on grants.
Okay,
Talked about.
yeah, we kind of talked about the AFG grant and again, we'll apply for those 14 new SCBA's in a RIC pack. Again, like I said, this will be the 4th year, but who knows with Fong and his input, maybe we can change our luck on that. One thing I wanted to update you on is the SAFER grant. We will be submitting for another 3 years on the SAFER grant position. Before we do that, we do have to provide layoff notices. So the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, describes that we have to give the layoff notices within 120 days of grant or after grant application. And that's per the NOFO. So what we would wind up doing sometime this February to kind of stay well within the guys is let the SAFER firefighters know, probably all the engineers know that, you know, there's an intent to lay off 2 positions February of 26. That loses 2 of our engineers. And then unless we get additional funding somehow, if we didn't get those SAFER positions, then 2 of those positions would be laid off.
And then so with the SAFER grant, I think you looked into it, so we could apply for it and also we could apply for the same engineering position, right? You
Yes.
mentioned it, maybe.
Yeah, I think that was the contingency. Essentially, they've got to be subject to layoff in order for us to become eligible to
I see.
reapply.
Okay,
Yeah.
What I understood, when we talked, one of the other meetings, that if we get it 2 years in a row, we have to hire an engineer. or
No,
whatever.
so no, that was bad information for me. That's what I heard from somebody else who had applied for SAFER. But no, you don't have to. She said that basically the standard is no, as long as you can justify the need, we'll fund it again. She did say, you know, there have been second grants awarded for Safer, but typically she's never seen a third.
Okay,
So technically, this is gonna be our third.
No, this will,
Well, we
We've only
had
done
one
one.
safer, well, we had one safer
We had-
grant before.
Right, but
Oh,
not for-
different
not for
position.
staffing.
Different
Right,
position.
yeah.
yeah.
Alright, so that doesn't count, that one doesn't count.
Right, and technically that position is fully funded now. So we did pick up that position. It was the, what was it for? It was,
Training,
recruit-
or, I'm sorry.
recruitment. Yeah, recruitment coordinator. And that's actually what Captain Goldblum's position was.
Okay.
Well, the vacant position. Where am I at? The VFC grant, we did get that again this year. We've signed everything on that. That's a 50% grant, and that's where we're gonna purchase our 4 to 5 additional sets of turnouts. And we've come back to the board on that already for the matching of $9,600 on that. And then the Gary Sinise grant that we applied for with regards to the turnouts, we haven't heard anything back on that, but there are a couple of other departments in the county that have been awarded that. And they were much smaller dollar amounts. And I made contact with the Gary Sinise Foundation, and it didn't sound promising. So we still haven't heard anything officially, but that grant deadline is passed. So I doubt that we got anything from it. And that's pretty much it on the grants.
Okay. Any questions on this? I think, oh, go ahead.
Just, wait, what about that, I just watched the Worcester, video, cause the anniversary that came up and they were talking about the Leary Foundation. Is that something that you'd be, Templeton, the Leary Foundation?
Not familiar with it.
Leary Foundation, it's Dennis Leary, the actor.
Oh,
His cousin was one of the Worcester firefighters who was killed about 15 years ago, 10 years ago. This is 20 years ago
so
now.
it's kind of like the Gary Sinise type thing.
Similar, but and it's primarily for agencies that need equipment, and that's what their focus is. And they just had the anniversary a couple weeks ago, and I watched the little video, and at the end of it, he talked about the Leary Foundation. I didn't know if it was a East Coast or it was nationwide. And then on the Safer, it used to be, there was two types of ways you could request a Safer. One was a one-time, I'm sure it's changed now, one time you got the funding and there was a certain match, and then that person had to be full-time, and then the other was just, they gave you the money to run it. So I'm sure it's changed how it used to be, but that's maybe where that information came from. Cause it used to be that you did have to hire 50% of the employees that you'd gotten funding for, so.
No, I talked to her directly and she basically said, no, there's no mandate that you have to hire.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like Paso days, a long time ago. So.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe you could use hopefully the new contact for the Safer grant as well. Mr.
Yeah.
Brown.
Yeah, I don't know if he has too much information on that, but
Oh,
certainly can
okay.
ask him.
I didn't know.
They-
So
they're-
it's not like a grant writer type of thing.
No, he was just a committee member that sat on primarily for AFG.
Oh, okay, I see, okay. Alright. Is that it?
That's it on
Okay.
grants.
Alright, I guess next one is for apparatus. And
Yep.
the status of department's apparatus.
So currently the apparatus, and I'll just kind of go down really briefly, 7195, obviously, we're just kind of nursing that engine along. We found some additional air leaks. The compressor was not keeping up with some of that, so we've replaced some valves and some fittings. We do have some additional airline leaks, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything. We did a valve replacement. We still have some foam that's getting into the tank somehow, and we're not quite sure how that's happening. The problem we're having right now is the mechanics that we use, which is South Coast, they're going through a transition with not being supported by Pierce anymore or South Coast. So there's two different companies. One's called South Coast EVS, Emergency Vehicle Services, and the other one's called, Newell, South Coast Newell. Or Renewal.
Fleet services.
Renewal Fleet Services. And they're kind of taking over, because South Coast sells the engines. The South Coast that's doing the repairs and those types of things, they were just kind of contracted and had warranty services through Pierce. They've lost that warranty, work. Pierce no longer supports them. Long story short, South Coast, the company that sells them, is coming up with their own repair fleet, and it hasn't reached us yet. But in the interim, there's good mechanics in that location. The problem is we're just not getting the service that we really need there, and they're not able to definitively tell us a lot of the things that we need fixed, or finding the repairs has been more difficult, I should say. So again, like I say, the bypass, we're still working on why that foam is getting into the main tank. And then, what else was there? The squeal. I don't know if you've been by, when we start that thing in the morning, there's a pretty horrendous squeal that comes out the belt. We thought we had that replaced with the alternator. The alternator was going bad. Long story short, replaced that, and now it looks like it's the AC compressor that might be locking up on us. The AC compressor is original, so it wouldn't surprise me. It's 22 years old, and it's probably wearing out. So those are kind of some of the things we're dealing with on that unit. Not surprising with its age.
I thought we had everything refurbished on that. It's not. We spent a lot of money to get it,
We
to
did,
get it
but,
refurbished.
you know, a lot of things were tested, and if they were found to be sound, they weren't.
You talking about the 2015 original? Yeah.
And you would think they would have replaced.
But
it.
again, you gotta figure that's almost 10 years.
Yeah, still, but I mean, at least I thought, oh,
Well, you know, all they did, they just did a 24-hour load test on it, so they run the motor under load for 24 hours, is what they do, and then they're checking the compression, cylinder compression, and there's another valve thing that they check for blowback, but it passed everything. I know, cause I sold the engine to Templeton.
We did get
Here's
it.
the problem.
When I was in Paso, I didn't want to sell the
You got a
engine.
decent deal on it.
I wanted to keep it.
Yeah,
In hindsight, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
But the sister engine is still in service.
Well, that's what I heard.
I think the wrong one,
Sister
the
engine is
wrong
doing
one was
well.
delivered.
We got the wrong sister.
Anyhow, so that's kind of where we're at with 7195,
I was trying to
7160.
give it to you, and my old boss, he would not let it happen. He insisted that we had to sell it. Oh, well.
Wonderful. 7160, in good shape, and no real issues there. We did have to buy tires for it, this year after it. I'd done a couple of, strike team assignments, and almost didn't have a base camp, demob on one of them. Cause we had big chunks missing out of the tires, so, yeah. So that got replaced. Utility, 71, the old red pickup truck. So we're probably gonna have to replace that here pretty soon. What, do you guys remember the breathing air support unit? That one essentially was purchased, well, not purchased, but refurbished.
Upgraded, I guess.
Yeah, upgraded or refurbished on a Homeland Security grant. That was supported by all the county chiefs and the police chiefs coming together going, yeah, it's a regional interest to dump money into this, and it was over 100,000 or something along those lines. Do you recall?
Well, it was a pretty chunk of change.
So roughly over 100,000, somewhere in that range, to get that thing refurbished and used within the county as a breathing support unit when anybody in the North County particularly had a structure fire. With that, that unit, when it came back from refurbishment, never worked right. We went back to County OES at the time, worked with a gentleman named Scott Milner, who reached out, long story short, he basically said, okay, we're gonna absolve you of the grant requirement. But you have to buy a 3/4 ton pickup within a couple of years to replace what that would be to then escort, or carry, additional SCBA bottles. So that was the trade-off to be able to get rid of that unit and untether ourselves from the actual Homeland Security grant. Was that in a couple of years, we're gonna have to purchase a 3/4 ton pickup in the place of that. We're kind of past that. What I will recommend, as staff is that we get rid of that rig. Sell it for what we can get for it, use the money that we 35, almost 40,000 that we got from the, oh no, it was 45,000, 10 for the compressor unit and 35 for the rig, right? So 45,000 that we got from that unit to then purchase a 3/4 ton pickup. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to that mandate of having to do that. Then,
I was just curious, when we bought your new truck, did we know this then? Cause I don't remember talking about, we talked about the red pickup being a vital use to us and we should keep it and
well, that's gonna replace the red pickup.
understand, but did you know at the time that we're gonna have to buy a new one that?
I don't recall whether the Tahoe was before that or I don't recall, if it was before that or after that. But when we got rid of the breathing support unit, that was basically taking a unit that we were dumping money into, and then that was never in service. And it untethered us from that obligation. So,
I understand that, I was just wondering if we knew all of this when I mean, to me, this is something brand new. I was under the assumption that your old fire truck or car was gonna be used for all kinds of things, and then,
well, that still will be, yeah,
but you're gonna have to sell that.
no,
Okay, then I'm.
I don't know, we don't, the obligation of replacing the breathing support unit with another truck has nothing to do with their existing now current equipment, but we don't need 2 pickup trucks. So if we buy a 3/4 ton pickup truck, we don't need to maintain the existing utility truck.
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
my mistake.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, no, that rig will stay. That rig will stay, it's the older red pickup.
Okay.
Will sell and replace. And that's essentially what that's for. So, with that being said, then 7100, it's running fine, in good condition. I had to put some new tires on that. That's pretty much it on, just so the committee knows, the union went out and, they petitioned the community, for a UTV. And that UTV, was essentially, let me back up. We ran into a couple of incidents where we've had incidents down in the riverbed during the parades, as you guys well know. And in other situations, especially like the 4th of July and those types of things, where we've had instances where we've borrowed, a UTV, all-terrain vehicle, or utility terrain vehicle, during those events and, during, situations where we've had to stoke people out of the riverbed, motorcycle accidents, those types of things. Where guys have put a lot of load on their backs, we've had to use some, rope systems to get guys up the edges of riverbeds, the riverbed and that type of stuff. So this UTV was a good idea, and yet it wasn't something where I was comfortable with budgeting for it. And so essentially the union approached me and said, well, if we got it donated, would that be? I said, well, if you guys get something donated, great. So they were able to accomplish that, raise the money, purchased it, and got the pump and a collapsible patient Stokes platform on it and everything at no cost to us, and they'll be donating to that to us after the first of the year. So about a $30,000 to $35,000 vehicle that's gonna be donated. So, yeah, no cost.
I think we had a couple of images of it. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw something similar to that here, part in the front.
Yeah, it's being put together right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Only if I get to drive it.
Well, get your eyes better first. I want you to see.
And as I told Mayor Harmon, absolutely not.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'll give you a ride in it, Wayne. How about that?
There you go.
Hey, can we loop back to the air machine? So that was an AFG grant for that unit, and then it got where it's at end of life and it wasn't serviceable. And so to my
The
understanding,
unit itself was an AFG grant?
I thought the whole package was.
No, that was
No, it was
Homeland Security.
Or Homeland, I'm sorry, not AFG, Homeland
Yeah.
Security. Homeland Security, I misspoke. But when it went to Scotty's office, it was determined at that point that, hey, you've already fulfilled your obligation, the number of years that it was in service, that there was no longer an obligation for Templeton to provide that service. Then you guys no longer provide that service, it was out of service. So it was eligible to be resold. Who's mandating that you have to buy a pickup truck? Cause that seems really
So that
odd.
was the letter that came down from the state on that grant obligation. And yeah, I've got the email from Scott, the letter from him that says that it'd have to be, because it wasn't, we didn't meet our obligation.
I think it had it for over 10 years.
No, the Homeland Security funds were designed
Refurbished it.
to update the compressor. Cause
You
it wasn't modern, it didn't have.
already had the
it didn't-
unit. with
Yeah,
the
the
unit,
unit, right.
Oh,
Yeah. So that unit was in existence for quite a while,
okay.
but the update was the new modern compressor
Right.
and a variety of other things that was a ridiculous amount.
So they're requesting you buy a pickup truck that isn't gonna be in the system.
Yeah.
You're not gonna use
It's
it.
gonna be of very little value as it relates to how
Regional.
Is there any way you can contest that and just request that they waive that? I mean, I guess the question would be, is the only value in buying it is so we can meet their,
No, there's more value, because
I mean, if there's trailers you're gonna pull, if there's other things, I guess you're gonna use it for that the current unit couldn't do, that would be one thing, but
correct.
if it's simply for them, I guess my recommendation, my thought would be, as I would go back to the state and say, show us exactly why and how that's gonna benefit, because if there's not a regional benefit to the community, or to the county, I guess. It would be only to the community, but
So-
you're spending money you may not have, or.
The way Scott described it was that when he talked to Sacramento, the intent was to fulfill getting air bottles to local departments. So if you can chauffeur, basically,
Yeah.
additional air bottles around to different departments in a cache, then it'll meet the same requirement.
But you
So-
don't have MSA in your machine.
Right, and at the time, we didn't have the airfield tank, the airfield compressor anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
alright.
So that's kind of where, I mean, we will see an advantage by getting rid of a 6-cylinder, 1500 and getting a 3/4 ton. But regionally, is it gonna provide any benefit? No.
I wanna find out details about exactly why we need to purchase it, because our department doesn't have the money, I'm not prepared to move forward on that at all, so.
Well, keep in mind that the sale of that technically we would not have been able to sell it and gotten the $45,000 to put back into asset replacement had we not gotten that agreement waiver. So that $45,000 is technically earmarked. Otherwise, we would have just kept the chassis of the old breathing support
Yeah,
and gotten rid of the compressor part and just kept the chassis
yes,
of that old
exactly.
rig, which was a V10, 1 ton.
yeah, that would have. So, yeah, I don't know, I guess I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if we had something that showed what the nexus is, what the requirement was. If Scotty could give you something or that it clearly says, here's why you have to do it.
I don't recall that letter having a firm deadline. It was
It
just.
didn't have
Yeah,
It didn't have a specific deadline.
yeah.
Verbally, he told me within a couple of years.
Okay.
Okay, well. We got other stuff.
But it specifically did say that it has to be replaced.
Alright,
Okay,
okay, and so, we talked about the.
The UTV donation.
We talked
Yep.
about, okay, the, training grounds update.
so the training grounds update, basically what we're looking at is, where our current training grounds are, and general manager could probably give more detail on that. Excuse me. So if you look where when it says Creekside River Well, right there, that's the current site of our training ground, right there. And, with everything that's gonna be taking place down there, the percolation pond back in the other corner, it has been, not requested, but basically we've been told we gotta move the training site to that upper north, western corner. So this is the idea we've come up with to move all of that stuff we have down on those grounds up to that upper corner. And that's kind of where we're at. We're gonna have to lay in some base. There's gonna be a fairly significant financial impact to move that training ground. But I don't have the numbers on that yet. And I think right now, it would not behoove us to move the current Conex boxes that are down there, that are the 2-story ones, that are what we call the tower. When we can get 4 new in much better shape Conex boxes, for right around $30,000. And they would have all the stairs, all the windows, all the cutouts and everything included in them. And they would be put on site, for that amount. Instead of trying to disassemble and move what we have now, which would probably come close to costing as much, plus they're starting to rust away and deteriorate.
This training center, is it just for our, unit that we, for Templeton, or do other, like cities and things that use it? as
Yeah,
well?
so, and trust me, I think I know where you're going on this. I will try to, beg, borrow, steal, anything I can get from other jurisdictions to help pay for the move. Because yes, City of Atascadero does most of their academies up here, with their reserves, along with Morro Bay. And, Paso doesn't use it, they've got a new site, but, Station 30 County Fire, they use it. And
County Fire uses it as well?
Yep.
So I think this should be like a collaborative effort versus Templeton being solely responsible.
Yeah, well, we're the ones that initially did it without anybody's, I'm assuming Brandon's not here, but, or do you recall when?
It was already here, it's been here long, yeah, I don't.
So if we don't, what happens if we don't have it?
I know it was after 2011, because, when I resigned from the department in 2011, it was not down there. So sometime in between 2011 and probably.
When I was here in 2014.
Is there?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's grown though, right? So this started out being a very modest couple containers there, and then we had to get a permit to add a second floor in a container, but over time, there's been a desire to add, you know, more infrastructure,
Yeah.
concrete to improve drainage and additional facilities for training. The issue that we have, or that the from a water system standpoint that we have, is just the risk of what happens to the training facility so close to essential wells. You know, there's actually live fires that happen there that get put out. And so whatever's burning on, in vehicles, those kinds of things, it's just a risk that we'd like to get much further away from in any water that would percolate into those wells.
So what happens if, like, before 2011, did we do our training in Paso Robles or? So, I mean,
We didn't have a site.
Atascadero doesn't have one, right? A training site?
Well, they
Or
do,
the county doesn't,
they
so why do
have-
we have to have?
they
it?
have training items.
It's an ISO, there's a real advantage with your ISO.
Yeah.
With your rating and stuff and your scoring, but go ahead.
Well, and basically, most of the other departments have training components built around their stations, or somewhere remotely from their station. Almost every department does, not to the degree that we have. The main reason that we have a little more complex training facility is we have a revolving door of firefighters coming through where other departments do not. So we have to do our own academies. And you guys have seen those academies and the firefighters coming through those academies on a regular basis, they get badged and whatnot. That is the lifesaver for us, to be able to train them up and then continue their training while they're here for that year or two. And then we have that kind of revolving door aspect. So other departments don't have to worry about that because they're full-time departments.
There's a real advantage of having the facility within the district as well, because the crew that's on duty can be training and respond to calls from that site. If we were in Paso Robles or at another training facility that exists, it would be impractical, or we'd have a real delayed response to calls within the district. So right now, we can have our on-duty crews not perform training while they're on duty, as opposed to requiring that training to take place on other days.
So where would the money for this come from?
So we've to date, we've paid for the training facility out of the development impact fees, like a few $1,000s at a time. I think we've probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 grand a year. Most years,
Right about
maybe it's 100 grand that's been invested out there so far. Something along those lines
From impact fees?
from impact fees. So
We could use it from.
So yeah, this is gonna be, the idea of the concept isn't simply just to move it, but also to expand and make some more additional. I didn't wanna see more investment take place at the site if it was ultimately gonna be moved, and the chief wanted to add additional pavement and asphalt, things that are gonna require further investment on the site, and it doesn't make sense to me to make those investments if we're ultimately gonna move it.
Yeah, but I think it's worth noting though, that when the
ISO,
the ISO, the Insurance Service Organization, when they give you a rating every 5 years, one of the big components is if you have a training facility or not, it's for maximum points. And so, whereas I know that Atascadero suffered because they had would get a 0.25% of the points because they didn't have a full training site. My old agency, we had a training tower and we got 100%. And it makes a pretty big difference overall in your point system
Yeah.
to keep your ISO down for your commercial rates. Not so much your residential rates, but primarily your commercial rates when it comes to that. So what is the rating for the district?
3,
Oh, that's a really good rating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3- what?
3-3X.
Oh, okay. That's really good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we just went through another evaluation, so we're gonna get reevaluated. Don't know where we're at with that. We're trying not to tick off, the evaluator anymore, cause we've been delayed on a couple of, items, getting back to her, but, overall, I think we're probably gonna be right in that same range again, 3X.
Cause it's,
Um,
it's dispatch, water supply, training, and then deployment resources, and then,
yeah, and communications.
but that's dispatches.
Oh, I'm sorry, dispatch, you said dispatch.
Comments?
Can you tell the county to hurry up our plan check or they can't use our?
I tell you what, I'll give you John Pashank's number and maybe we can all give him a call and,
I'll call John.
Have them come to a meeting. Okay, all right, so I think that's it. That's all the update. Any future items that we want to discuss? Well, I guess we're just gonna have to, do we need to, as far as the plan, deck and things like that? That's just gonna go to the county. That's probably gonna be a few months away. That's.
yeah,
I think we wanna internally, we were talking about the plans, you know, make sure we have a real good grasp on what's contained. And make sure it's gonna meet our needs before it gets submitted to the county, because we don't know when that's gonna, how fast they'll be able to turn that around. But we'll obviously we'll keep the board in, and if the committee, if we need to meet with the committee again before, we actually go out to bid. These will be, it's a formal public works project. It'll be,
Yeah.
You know, a sealed bid project, with a fixed deadline for submissions. And while we'll get an estimate from Rubio before then, the estimate is not from a contractor that would build this project. You won't know what's gonna cost us if bids come back.
Okay. All right,
And
so
then there's because of the coordination, you know, we have to continue to use the station while this takes place. That's gonna be kind of tricky. We need to really make sure that the phasing of the work is well thought out, so that at all times the crew can be here in front of the station during construction.
it's gonna be fun.
Fun to live through.
Yeah.
So can I ask for a future item, maybe next year, at one of the meetings, is there a opportunity to do a look back, like the last 2 or 3 years? The number of firefighters that you brought on, how long they've worked, you know, like kind of what investment you're making on your, on these employees, these new reserves, before they become a shift reserve, before they become full-time, whether here or another agency, just to get a general idea of like how much turnaround, you know, because it's a pretty big investment with all the training. I mean, it's valuable. There's a lot of value with that. But kind of what that looks like in terms of the value to the district here, to the community, you know, what your numbers are, what the desired amount is, et cetera. I'm more curious, and I don't have a specific data set that I'm asking for, but in general, if there's, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of interested in, hey, how long are we getting people that are staying 2 or 3 years? Are we getting 1 year and they're getting hired somewhere else?
Yeah,
or,
I mean,
you know, what does that
sometimes,
look like?
sometimes we're 6 months. you
Yeah.
know, and other times we're 2 years and,
Well, I mean, actually, I think that would be a great idea, because then we could evaluate and figure out what programs are working, what's not working, and where we wanna see our fire department to go in terms of staffing.
well, and this was
Especially
one
with
of,
safer grant,
yeah, and this was one of those situations with regards to staffing and how we were doing the staffing. We determined it just wasn't working, by allowing reserves to sign up. You know, just throwing it out there, hey, signups are available. Because we were getting every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we weren't getting any signups. And so that was just kind of like, okay, well, now we're running 2. You know, or, you know, wow, we're gonna have to cover it with another full-time person because we only have 2 on and now we'll be down to 1. So it was that kind of situation. Essentially, when we changed to the shift reserves, that kind of corrected all of that. And now it's like, no, here's your shift. This is what you will be working. And kind of did away with the whole sign-up thing. But no, that's a valid point, and I think we could easily look back and see what our turnover has been essentially, and.
I mean, I'll tell you, oftentimes when anybody asks me, I tell them, you know, it's Templeton Fire, #1 is the recommend place to go and try to get on as a reserve. Like Morro Bay's got a fledgling program, and the PCF program with the county recently County Board of Supervisors received a report from Rob Lewin to basically dump their paid call firefighter program. And so
Wow.
through attrition, to run those out because they're having such difficulty, the costing of it is exceeding what the value is. They're in a little bit different situation, but, you know, that's where I was just curious, because you should be getting, with the exception of like San Miguel, Margarita, I guess,
Yeah,
but
especially
there's
with
really
all
no
the-
other places to come.
Especially with all the training that, you know, one has to do now.
Well, and therein lies the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, is that you're not getting volunteer department people anymore, the true volunteer aspect, they just can't put in the time. You know, and the training requirements that are out there that are mandated by the state. And so, you know, for example, I think Santa Margarita has 6 people on their entire department right now. And,
But you have to live in the area though. don't
you have to live
If you
in
do,
the
yeah.
district. And then, the same thing with San Miguel is they have about, I think they might have 7 now, 7 or 8. But, you know, there you go back to the propensity of missing calls,
Yes.
you know, because nobody's around. Well, we're now at 1,100 calls a year, and we can't be doing that anymore.
But I think that would be a good topic to have on the agenda and discuss that. To, you know, just to get some information.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And that's something I'll add to, future topics. Also, just so Keith gets the information, if he's not attending a board meeting, but kind of like my annual report that I give the board.
Yeah.
Kind of let you know where the calls are, what the biggest draw on our system is. And right now this year, overwhelmingly, it's Ramada. And then 1310 Los Tablas, 1310, 1320, that whole complex in there. That has been an enormous draw on us this year. So DaVita Dialysis, the CHC, and several of the doctors' complexes within there. And they're not insignificant calls. They're pretty significant calls the majority of the time, because you essentially have very sick people going to these places for some type of treatment, and then they have a catastrophic event that takes place. And now we're dealing with them in the parking lots or in the actual building itself.
Wow.
You know, we're getting a lot more of the not so significant or urgent calls out at Ramada, where it's lift assists and, you know, a smoke detector or, you know, that type of stuff. But we have our significant ones out there too. So low income senior. Oh, the other one, I was talking to the general manager the other day, and he was asking, you know, well, what's the increase? Why are we breaking, you know, 1,000 and 1,100? And quite honestly, you know, and I know you two will probably remember when People Self-Help Housing came to us about
Oh, yeah.
1050 Peterson Ranch. And I made the comment, well, that's gonna be low income senior housing. We're gonna see a call increase. And he kind of fought me on that and said, well, we've never seen that before. That has been our increase. So that's where we're seeing, we're probably, and I can, you know, have Captain Goldblum run the report, but we're probably over 100 calls at least at that place.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
Well, good thing
For the
it's
year,
CFD.
for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what the CFD is for.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, then any other? Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
All righty.